of this meeting is in regards to presentations from three different groups. Andy Chase, Andrea LaBarge, and then we got two sort of combined together, Mary Sirlus and Lori Stacy over the homeless. But we're gonna, Andy, you're first up.
You guys get a chance to look at that? Don't you get a copy?
Yes, I got it. Everybody got a copy?
Well, I looked at all of them. Yep. I know Joe, Billy, everybody else, Steve, I don't know if you and Joey are playing with the property, but it's where the old store and the saloon and supermarket used to be for over 100 years in mining property. I owned the property for the last, 27 years.
Let's help you also, just take a copy.
Yeah, we don't have an easel here. Anyways, yeah, get another copy. So what I took the liberty to do here is to do a little sketch on this. So I'd love to be a perfect spot for a podium. For a tree. Get you on camera. Bill, I want to look.
I got the camera on.
Now Joe's going to have back to me.
All right.
You can turn around, Joe? But anyways,
I can hear you.
as you can see right there, it's 1.3 acres. It's got town water and sewer. It's a vacant lot. I bought it, like I said, about 20-some years ago. For the simple reason being, it was a vacant lot. I didn't want anybody else building in there at the time. So, and now I'm going to put it up for sale. And if you've been through Lime Mountain, you see what we have up there for a playground. It's not much of one, in my opinion. It consists of basically an open tennis court that they took pipes off them. Now it's just a fenced-in area that two pine trees fell on.
It'll be a pickleball court. They come in
It'll
July.
be a pickleball court now. So that, then it has a wooden boat with a plastic slide coming off it and a backstop. So that's what consists of the playground in Lime Mountain today. And what I've done with this little sketch right here, you could do anything you wanted to do with it. We put parking there, anything that swing sets and everything else, from a basketball court to, you could put pickleball courts there. And on the property, there's a brook that runs right down to it. You could put a bridge there and that gives, fish to cook if you like. Anyways, all kinds of ideas. Like I said, it was a piece of property that was once the old saloon, grocery store, bar. And if you ever go in the Lime Mountain Post Office, I believe there's pictures of it, isn't there, Bill?
I don't know. Not paying much attention.
Where's it located?
As you come up through the main drag in Lime Mountain, right before the bridge right there, it's right in front of the fire department.
Okay.
Yep, it's a vacant piece of land.
Right next to the road. Bottom of Mine Hill.
Yep. Yep. So we'd love to, we bought, like I said, Wednesday, we cleared it. I paid $8,500 for it. I think I paid $2,500 to $3,000 to clear it. Paid school land taxes on it throughout the years, which aren't been much of anything. But we'd love to sell it to the town for basically what I have invested in it, and that's $25,000. Yep. So, food for thought. I wish we had all the other councilmen here, but naturally, Bill, you know more about this than I do, but I believe there's a matching fund from the state and federal government for anything that the town puts in.
For buying a piece of property?
Or for buying or developing a playground.
I'm not sure about buying a piece of property. To develop a playground, yeah, there's grant money for that.
Yeah, so anyways, food for thought. Every community, when you have younger people moving into it, one of the biggest things they look at is a nice little playground in there. So the town board's interested in growing their tax base and making the town more nicer community, if you will.
You know the assessed value?
I believe it's like $8,000 or $9,000. Yep. Yep. Of course, the assessment on it, I don't think it changed in probably 25 or 30 years. So.
If the town buys it, there will be no assessed value to the town for it. They wouldn't pay taxes on it, would you? It would be
Town property.
town property.
And then you put a pool in there.
What?
Pool? Bill, you you could be a lifeguard.
What? Andy, when did, just one quick question, when did you sell it, you bought this again?
I mean, almost 20 years ago.
Oh. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Good luck from me.
Appreciate it.
Robert DeBurse, Robert and Andy and Brian Pike.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
All right.
All right, appreciate it.
Everyone, thank you for your time. I'd love to stay, but I've got to go. Back to work. Back to work. Yep. All right, let's get something accomplished here tonight. See you.
Okay, Andrea, you're up. Podium is yours.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to take a moment to bring the board up to date. As of June 1st, I have sold my agency to Eastern Insuring, who is, there's 6 members, and one of them happens to be my son, Chris Labarge, and then Brian Bruce and Chris Manat, Craig Levine, and Nate Race. They own the agency in Plattsburgh. They bought out Norton Agency a year ago, and they approached me to buy the agency. I am staying on. I'm now an employee. Different role, but I'm doing the same duty. So I wanted to share that with everyone. For those who are clients of mine, we did a mass mailing last week. I trust that the town got a letter. Every one of the policy holders received a letter, but for those that might not be aware of it, I'm just making this announcement. I'm not putting anything in the paper. I don't choose to do that at this time. I just wanted to share that with you before we start. And this evening, I did receive notice. There was a claim out for equipment that was damaged. Most recent, I can move this thing so I can see you guys. There was a claim that was pending on equipment that was damaged most recently, and the claim was settled with $6,403 payment that was received. Bill, do you want me to address this fishing derby liability issue?
Any way you want to do it.
Okay, I brought this, there's an email that I put in your packet, okay? And Bill shared with me some information that there's consideration of a pending fishing derby next year in February. So I went to risk management and I asked for an opinion from risk management. So you can see the dialogue, first of all, that Bill received, and basically did a lot of work on it, and basically trying to hold the town not responsible for any liability. However, I think that there's another way to do this, and it would be very inexpensive. I think when you read this document that came from risk management today, because I wanted supporting coverage or supporting documentation on it. I really would recommend that, that you have some kind of a liability. A special one-day event policy can be very inexpensive and put the town on as an additional insurer, and it could certainly help them with that. But when you read through this, basically the town should be taking precaution, putting up signs and following the language. The town does not have so many responsibilities for injury or damage to personal property. And it also goes on in the lower part of the use of the facilities at your own risk. If the town is sponsoring the event, which we both know that they are not sponsoring the event, but I definitely think for the protection of the town that I would highly recommend some kind of, because some kind of a liability, because they are going to be on your premises at some point, even if they, dock, go to the boat launch or wherever they're going to be being accessible. So I can help with this, but I wanted to bring you what I received for a response from that. And so you can read that, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to contact me, and we can continue on with it to support the town. we'll start with the left-hand side, you have your packet for your renewal, and that's Trident on it. It says, excuse me, and under the general liability, there are no changes. And actually, just so that you know, and just a reminder, under the general liability, it's based on your budget, okay? And so your expenditures. So we have $1 million limits liability with a $4 million aggregate. We have a no deductible on the policy, and it's an insurance policy that you have, and employee benefits with a $1,000 deductible with $1 million worth of coverage. Is on the general liability portion of the policy. We have, we also have, let's see, no, I don't, on the cyber liability on the left, on the right-hand side of the page, I'm not going to address this because I have sold you, a couple years ago, I sold you a standalone cyber liability policy long before Trident came out and offered this. I just read an article today that an agent should not allow a client, commercial clients, to not accept cyber liability. They're almost pushing it on us, and believe me, I think I've done my due diligence with my clients and making certain they have it. This coverage that Trident is offering is $100,000 worth of coverage. You have $1 million. I looked at the premiums, and this is $1,102. You'll see it further on in the presentation. However, I just don't feel that it's adequate coverage, and you could buy more coverage, but we're escalating the premium. Any questions? We'll go.
It's just a
Oh,
question
that's right.
of policy here. When does it begin and when does it end?
June 21st.
June 21st it starts?
Yes,
or
the
ends?
renewal is June 21st.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay. Okay, on the following page, because they don't number the pages, I apologize. You have limited pollution liability for water and sewer is included. Employee benefits, as I mentioned earlier, is included, and failure to supply is $1 million worth of coverage is included with a no deductible. And included is also coverage for the dam and public water utility and sewer systems is included. You have, it's a non-auditable policy. That means that once that we give you the proposal, we do not come back and audit the policy. Under the public officials, you have $1 million worth of coverage with an aggregate of $4 million. Employment-related wrongful acts, which is very high today in liabilities of claims. There's $1 million worth of coverage. The deductible is $5,000. Excuse me, and the public officials also has coverage for decisions that you make on a dam, water, public water and utilities in the sewer system. And that's a claims-made policy, so we have to keep a retroactive date on that, which I have done and taken care of for you. Under the commercial auto policy, you have $1 million worth of coverage, and you have your uninsured motorist with $1 million worth of coverage, which you want to match at all times, even in your personal auto policy. And this is for everyone in general. If you have an umbrella policy, you want to make certain, if it's available, that you have uninsured motorists to match on your umbrella policy. You have non-owned and hired, so when you people are coming to a meeting, the board's coming to a meeting, you have $1 million worth of coverage for non-owned, because you're doing the duties of the town. The New York optional basic economic loss is additional coverage over the personal injury protection. You have $150,000 worth of personal injury protection. You'll see at the top, personal injury, and then you'll drop down to $100,000, and then an additional basic economic loss of $25,000. And you get to pick and choose where you want that, whether it's for essential services, therapy, mileage. You can pick on the optional economic loss, whereas you don't get to pick on on the personal injury, it's first bills in or the first bills paid out. You have replacement cost endorsement on 10 years and newer on your vehicles. You have your fleet of vehicles and the values, and I've already checked the values prior with Mark and Bill for replacement costs and actual cash value on your vehicles, so we're comfortable with that. You have $1,000 deductible, and on the light vehicles, you have a $500 deductible on the comprehensive and collision. Yeah, ACV means actual cash value, that's subject to depreciation. Any questions? Okay, then we go to the property section, and under the property section, the inflation this year was 2% on the buildings and 1% on the contents. And actually, I called most recently this past week and spoke with a lumber yard and actually asked them what the prevailing rates were in their increases, and they just took another increase. And that was before we heard about what is happening with our steel. And so that could also inflate again. However, I did take a 2% because that is the industry standards as of January 1st. So I inflated your buildings by 2% and 1% on the contents. You have a $2,500 deductible. You have replacement costs on the buildings, except for we do have the building down on Cook Street that is at actual cash value. Is there anything potential going on there, or is Cook Street just kind of like quiet and silent? The old municipal building
We've got
office.
we're looking into what's actually for asbestos in the building. We've got a grant for that, and we've hired a company. So we
Okay.
haven't started that work, but
So it remains vacant.
remember, it remains vacant, and once we get that information, we'll make a decision on what we're gonna do.
Okay, thank you.
Andre, I do have a question.
Yes,
On the contents part of this, this page, you have $619,174. Can you define contents?
yes, I
for me?
can. The contents will be the contents here. It doesn't have anything to do with the garage.
Okay,
Okay, the garage, because you're looking for, that's not enough money. Okay, the garage is on Inland Marine, and I have a schedule, we're gonna get to that. Okay, because what I do is I break down the schedule, get you a better rate by going. And so
Okay.
I'm able to get you a better rate. So this is the contents of this building and the contents of the water treatment plant, the sewer plant, and office, or the sewer office building, and inventory of, it could be at the beach, or so it makes up. I didn't bring the schedule because I worked on it, and I actually had to do something else, and I didn't bring it with me. I know I have it with me, because I put it away before I left. But it doesn't include the highway department. In the highway department, I have Mark go down through, I have an inventory that's been developed through the years with the employee, with the highway superintendent. We take and we review that every year, and every department gets an inventory. So whether it's the water treatment, the sewer, parks, and then there's the inventory for the highway department. And we'll go down through that, and if there's any additions or deletions, we make the adjustments. And then we take depreciation where it's applicable. So you will see that when we get to the Inland Marine. It's called Inland Marine, Joe, for your, for your.
okay, so the contents then basically is from the back of the town garage where all the equipment is stored forward here, right? Forward this way
Forward.
for this building, and then contents of other buildings that we have? Okay, I just was concerned with the contents on,
No, that side is separate. Draw the, and just like this wall, draw the line, and I do not bring that into, I mean, his office desk, his computer would be included in that, okay? But not any of the equipment to run the operation of the garage.
Okay, and if that's in here though, right?
It's in here, we're gonna get to it.
Okay, okay.
Okay, want me to pause till Bill comes back?
No,
I actually I do have a question.
Oh, good,
Just
good.
on, Andre, I'm Steve Bragg, how are you?
Yes, thank you.
The new truck we're getting, like, I'm sure you put that in here for their, but it's not gonna be in service until when? So mid-June, so are we adding it at that?
No, I think it's an add-on, Steve, to be honest with you, because
Okay.
I can't do that unless I have a VIN number.
Well, absolutely, no, I
I don't have
understand that.
any, and then if we're doing a deletion off the policy, so then it's gonna be adjusted.
So it's only addressed when it goes in service?
Exactly, unless you guys were, if you had the VIN number, like I've got another municipality that basically, they're like, how much is it? But they didn't have the VIN number, so I can't give them how much
And
it is.
we'll have the VIN number by next week,
Well, that's fine.
just to let you know.
Okay, and if the VIN number, but, when are you taking occupancy of that?
Before the 21st.
Before the 21st,
Yeah.
so we'll be doing it won't be an endorsement, because if you get in under the wire, I won't have to do an endorsement, I'm just gonna process the policy effective. It might be, if you take it on, I would say if you take it on June 19th, there'll be an endorsement on the old policy versus a new policy, because I have to track motor vehicle. Okay, because you'll be registering it. I mean, once you get it, you're gonna want to register it immediately.
Of course, thank you.
Okay? All
But
right.
I don't think there'll be any removal of any of the trucks.
It's an add-on.
It's gonna be an add-on, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So I can certainly, I can quickly give that information if it's necessary.
Okay.
In fact, actually, it'll be adjusted because I'm glad you shared this with me because I brought all the vouchers, so I'm actually gonna have to do it as an endorsement. Because I brought all the vouchers and invoiced everything tonight, so that, we'd be up to date. Okay.
Okay.
You have an endorsement on your policy, and it's called a 360 endorsement. And there's many built-in items in here that might not be really of great importance at this time, but in the event of a loss, it's certainly utilized, and we utilized a lot of it during our experience of the loss here. And some of the things that extra expense, it was a biggie, and it's always huge with me whenever I'm working on a policy, and so I always highlight and always go back to that. Excuse me, or undamaged portion of the building limits, demolition costs, as you just talked about, demolition costs, you got an asbestos, if something happened to that building down there, okay, we got a demolition cost, and you have $100,000 worth of demolition. If there's asbestos in that building, it'll be all $100,000 for removal for the special, delivering it to a special site. I'm not gonna highlight on every one of them. The inside and outside of the premises, standard is $5,000 because of the deposits that are being made. I have $20,000 worth of money inside and outside, and I reduced the deductible to $250, which gives you better coverage. So if somebody's in transit, okay, and depending on where you're going, and if there was any cash, taking in cash for, some people still probably pay with cash for their taxes, and that's, or even bonds. Okay, that's, pollution cleanup and removal, and there's another $25,000 worth of coverage. I think you can just go down through this valuable papers, it's $100,000 worth of coverage. Are there any questions on the property section or the 360?
Well, we got a fence on the playground in Phillips Court, I think I talked to you about, it got damaged by the trees falling on it. Is that something,
You called me on that,
Yeah.
and we talked about it, and because of the deductible, we didn't think that it applied, but your fencing is listed out under the property damage portion of the policy.
so what is the,
I
you
don't have the,
know what the deductible would be? I forgot what you told me.
1,000.
1,000?
Follows the, let me see, or 2,500 on this policy.
Oh, it's 2,500? Okay,
Because
yeah.
you called me and we talked about it,
It's gonna
and,
be replaced at 2262. Approve that.
sorry,
Okay.
okay.
Can't award it at all.
Well, I can, but I can also increase the premium. So which one, how do you want to go? What comes first? You know? Okay, all right, under the inland marine, okay, under the inland marine portion of the policy, this is Joe where you were asking me, and when you go down to you'll see streets and, the streets and highway, that's all of the miscellaneous equipment, that's all the equipment that, that Mark has. It is not the trucks, though, and anything that's registered, or, you know, that's on the road, I have that separate on the business auto, okay? But this is all of his inventory, his tools, that's what.
That's where the street sweeper fell under, that they repaired,
Yeah.
or getting repaired.
Okay, just so that you understand that, okay?
Okay.
All right, and then I also have in there, I have miscellaneous, I always like to put in miscellaneous schedule, just in case they forget about something, and we did exercise that also when we had the loss, because that could be, it could be inventory on parts. And so I always try to include that, and I do have a lower deductible there of $250. Excuse me. Communication, communication is pretty self-explanatory. I think if you go down through these, they're pretty self-explanatory. Hired, borrowed, and leased. Sometimes in municipalities, I find that you get in a crunch sometimes and you need another piece, you need a piece of equipment. And when you receive this piece of equipment, if you go to, let's see, a tiller rental, and you need a piece of equipment, and they want a certificate of insurance. I keep the $100,000 on there because of the fact that you don't have to call me, because if the $100,000 usually covers a piece of equipment. So there's no endorsement on the policy, and that's why we have $100,000 on hired, leased, and borrowed equipment. And the rest of the inventory tracks the exposures of what you have for inventory here. Under excess liability coverage, you have a $5 million excess liability policy. And that covers under the liabilities of the general liability that I mentioned at the beginning, $1 million, public officials $1 million, and the commercial auto of $1 million worth of coverage. Any questions? Okay, if you go to the following page, you will see the premiums for the renewal. And what I mentioned earlier on this is that under the cyber liability, it's $1,102. And what I did, you'll see where under the total on the left-hand side, the left column is 1819. I minused out $1,102, netting out at for your package policy. That's me, I'm sorry. Oh. Did you get that? I think that's a date. Okay, I apologize. We're $43,674 for your renewal. Your expired is $42,849. Remember, we had a 2% inflation on the building, okay? So basically, you have a pretty flat renewal. And then we go down and we drop down to the pollution liability policy. With Bill's permission, I'm trying to move the policies out to renew at the same time. So we had a pollution liability policy that renewed in July. And so I'm trying to bring them all to renew on June 21st, so it makes it really easy, and you only have to listen to me once a year. And so I prorated that policy to match, and so that's for your third-party liability. And there's $1 million worth of coverage there with a $5,000 deductible. Expiring is 11/64, the renewal is 11/07. The crime coverage, this will be this picks up coverage for your tax collector, is included in there, and the crime coverage renewing, it's a 3-year policy, and it's renewing with the same premium as expired. I did put in the packet behind this is more detailed information on the pollution liability coverage. Under the cyber liability, as I mentioned, you have $1 million worth of coverage. The cyber this year for the renewal has been reduced, and they're offering at $1572.13. I think in years to come that this will probably escalate a little bit. I don't think we'll see reductions on cyber when it's the second fastest growing claim right now in the industry. Employment-related practices and cyber liability are the two largest exposures. Bottom line for the total renewal is $47,489.74. It's just a little over $500. You have a 0.11% increase. I worked with risk control, and risk control has been up here, and we have risk management, and they offer great services, and they come up here and they have to work for Bill. And today when I called them, they were very available to offer us support on the questions on the fish survey. There's online training also, and I think that you might want to look into this. I helped somebody the other day with the risk management. There's just a world of information out there. So any of you, even, I mean, it doesn't just have to be Bill and the secretary to the office. I think any of you, if you just explore that, you might find some very valuable tools there. Compliance next week, the board, compliance for true workers' compensation. And I kind of got the ball rolling and to have a training course. I was requested by one of the other municipalities to bring a CPR course into the area, and compliance has been gracious enough that they're going to sponsor, but they're going to have training in the morning, 2 and 14. Anyone on the board, anybody that's an employee is certainly welcome to come to it. There's 3-hour training or 2-hour training in the morning. There's a luncheon, and then there's an hour training for CPR. And a letter went out from compliance, and I really encourage you to bring your team to this. It's at the Rainbow. And it's at, I believe at 10 o'clock, Bill, did you get the letter?
I think so.
Yes, and we really need to support this because we put a lot of effort into this, and first
That's
of all.
next Thursday, the 14th, you said?
Next Thursday, the 14th, and what I started with just the municipalities that I write, but then compliance kind of wanted to invite everybody that they insure in Clinton County, which is wonderful because the more we have, the more input we have. So encourage and bring your people, and like I say, the board is certainly welcome to come to that. Okay, and then on the back there was an owner's contractors protective. That's work permits that you do within the highway department. Okay.
Andre, I got a couple questions for you.
Do you have a question?
Yeah. Can you
Joe?
go back to inland marine
Yeah,
for a minute, please?
yeah, go ahead.
So I'm just trying to get an understanding. We have communications for
Radios.
15, 3, computer for 19, and then general office equipment for 18. Can you define general office equipment? What is general office equipment?
Well, actually, I put in your copier there, because your copier is so much, it's very expensive, and if you have a loss there, it's $2,500 deductible. So Joe, that's why I take it out of the contents coverage and I bring it into the inland marine under general office. And actually, I just found, I do have a statement of values, but if you want to take a quick look at, you'll see where there's a PPP beside it is what the inventory is for the contents. So this is what I was referring to. Okay, so if you take your location,
Yeah.
look at location 1, okay, you'll follow, please.
Yeah.
And then the PPP is the contents that
Okay.
you're questioning. Okay?
Okay. And then communication would be what? What that was on, the
Radio.
phone system?
Phone, radio, two-way radios,
Okay. Okay.
okay? I think that concludes mine. And what I'll need, if the board approves everything, is I need to, actually in Bill's packet, Bill, I put all of the invoice, if everything is approved.
Right, I got it.
I put everything that you need there. Joe has all the forms that need to be signed. Okay?
I thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, up next, is this married person here?
Yes, I'm right here.
Oh, okay. Right, thank
Well, good evening. My name is Mary Service, and I am the Preservation Services Director at Adirondack Architectural Heritage, which is based in Keysville. I'm here because our organization was alerted to the proposed demolition of the Shazy Lake Pump House by the state of New York, and we also heard about the local town interest in acquiring this property and reusing it for public purposes. I'm here to express our support to finding a solution for this building that allows it to be repurposed for public use and to outline some ways in which our organization may be able to help. A little bit about us. Adirondack Architectural Heritage is the regional nonprofit historic preservation organization for the Adirondack Park. Our mission as an organization is to further better public understanding, appreciation, and stewardship of the Adirondacks' architectural heritage, communities, and historic sites through education, advocacy, technical assistance, and direct action. In addition to planning and implementing a variety of educational programming, we offer technical assistance to homeowners, municipalities, businesses, and other organizations with what to do with their historic properties. In addition, we seek to find solutions for endangered historic and architectural resources. We are probably most known for our work at Camp Santanoni down in Newcomb, which is a National Historic Landmark, and as an organization, we were largely instrumental in changing the state's 20 years of neglect on this property. We've also done several projects with Adirondack fire towers, namely doing the National Register nomination for several of them. Although we are based in Keysville, Arch has been very active in local projects. For example, we sponsored annual tours of the Clinton County Correctional Facility, and in Lion Mountain, we gave an award to the Friends of Lion Mountain for the restoration of the depot and the creation of the Lion Mountain Mining and Railroad Museum. We've also worked with several historic property homeowners to restore their buildings in the town. So you have a historic building on your hands, and although that building is not currently on the National Register of Historic Places, we certainly think that it is eligible. Under the terms of the New York State Historic Preservation Act, the state is supposed to go to great lengths to ensure that the state actions do not threaten historic properties, except where there's no feasible alternative. And the fact that there seems to be so much local support for saving this building says that there probably is a feasible alternative somewhere. Because there is so much local support, the state should be required to consider alternate solutions for this building. We've already been in contact with the State Historic Preservation Office, and they know that a review of this building could be coming forward. Our understanding of the current proposal is that the state will remove the equipment from the building, remove or abate hazardous substances that could be inside, and then demolish the structure. This proposed plan would likely come at a fairly high cost. We believe that an alternative might be for the state to remove or abate any hazardous substances in the building, remove any equipment that is not essential for future uses of the building, and then give the property to the town of Dannemora to be developed and reused for public use. This would be probably a win-win situation for both parties involved. For the community, the property would be acquired without any hazardous materials issued or additional expenses to deal with. This project, or this proposed project of the town taking over this building is a good one, and it does have a lot going for it. There does seem to be a lot of community support, which might help in terms of donations of money, volunteer time, and materials, which could potentially take a lot of the burden off of the town's shoulders. Repurposing the buildings such as this one could also be very attractive for grant programs, and it might be one that could potentially earn a lot of money in state funding to do the project. How Arch can help is, there's a number of ways. We can work with the town and others to communicate with the Department of Corrections and Community Services about the community's interest in acquiring the pump house and to navigate a way to achieve this. We've already started work with the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, as I mentioned earlier, to get the pump house listed on the National Register. This would provide better protection for the building from adverse state actions and make it eligible for state historic preservation grants. Arch will work with the town and community to develop plans for how the building could be used for community purposes. We will also work with the town and community to develop plans for the conservation of the building and its adaptive reuse for community purposes. If a consultant is needed, we can certainly help the town obtain funding for a consultant and help you choose an appropriate one. And lastly, we can work with the town and community to obtain funds for the restoration and rehabilitation of the building, both through private giving and public funding in the form of grants. So to sum up, Arch fully supports this project, and we are willing to help in any way that we can. Thank you.
So I actually got some couple questions for you.
Of course.
I don't know if I'll speak for myself, but we need to maintain the status of that building, there's no doubt in my mind. It's older than I am, I just turned 60 not so long ago, so. We even, listen, careful, you just got a Jane call not so long ago. So, but I guess for me, what's the legal next steps? I mean, what if something starts to occur in that building? Is there injunctive relief that you can do, or with your extension that can stop any type of demolition of that building?
As of right now, legally, I don't know that we could do that. Like I said, we could try to open up a dialogue with the town and the state to try to figure out a solution for this. But in terms of legal action that we could possibly take, I would have to investigate that further.
I'm a little worried. There was no outreach to us from the corrections asking us our opinion about the building, which kind of concerned me a little bit. The other part of that is that building off your right shoulder on the wall. We do a swap building if they want. They don't have that building, and we'll take the pump house and they can do whatever they want that building. They put off in it and expand their services for the corrections. But I'm just worried that it's going to fall on deaf ears. Politics is going to start playing a role in this. The next thing you know, we see heavy equipment rolling into that piece of property, and then what happens next? I mean, that's my fear.
Yeah, that's certainly a valid one, but hopefully if we work early to get a dialogue started, that might be avoided.
And what do we have to do collectively, collaboratively, to form a partnership with either Betty Little or Billy Jones or whoever to get that political arm on our side to help us with this situation? Do we need to have a field visit with those representatives to say, hey, look, here's the building? I mean, I'm telling you, it'd be a perfect place to install a dry hydrant for that end of the town for any type of fire purposes in the future. So I'm getting a little nervous that the state has been quiet, and when they're quiet, that's when they do the most damage, so.
Understandable.
I think Lori can,
Should probably,
answer some of your
Spend
questions
money,
when she comes up.
Maybe I'll save that one for Lori.
yeah.
I think some of that information you're asking now.
She knows.
Lori.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Appreciate it, really.
Okay, Lori, you're up.
You're on the spot now.
You got a word of warning?
Did you say? My name is Lori Stacy. I first heard about the proposed demolition of the pump house at I believe it was the April 24th or somewhere within that vicinity town board meeting. And I was instantly appalled because for most of us here, even though it's not technically considered an historic building, we feel that it is an historic building. So Bill gave me his permission to go on a fact-finding tour, basically, to get information about the pump house and be his representative for the town. One of the first things I did was get a hold of the Clayton County Historical Association, and they got me in touch with Arch. I spoke to Steve Englehart there. And what he wanted me to do from my end thus far, and what I did for the town, which I'm going to do this in a minute, but he wanted me to give a written and pictorial information, history of the pump house. So here it is of what of the research that I've been done. The history of the Shazy Lake Pump House. The following information is taken from a text from a manuscript about the building of the Dannemora State Hospital, which is at the Museum of Dannemora Village Offices, courtesy of Pete Light. From appropriations made by the legislature in 1930 and 1931, the contract for laying pipes, building transmission lines, construct a pump house, and the installation of machinery for pumping water from Shazy Lake to the so-called prison reservoir were completed in 1934. The cost of the above project was paid jointly by the institution and Clinton Prison and furnished both institutions an exhaustible water supply. Further history. In 1931, New York State acquired a 1-acre parcel of property on the northeastern shore of Shazy Lake for $1,130 from the Shazy Lake Realty Corporation. The president of the Shazy Lake Realty Corporation was Reginald Reinhold Warrenrath. Shortly thereafter, New York State hired a local contractor, John McCambly and Sons, to construct a stone Elizabethan revival-style pump house on the newly acquired property. At the direction of New York State, John McCambly and Sons constructed a 1-story stone pump house with a steeply pitched slate roof. The building's overall rectangular plan is accented by large gables that project from the north and south facades. The roof is also punctuated by gable roof wall dormers, 2 on each side of the north and south facades. The building's beautiful stone walls are enhanced with a series of symmetrically placed windows. The building of the water line was being dug through Dannemora, over the mountain, through the fields and pastures to Shazy Lake and along the road to the pump house for a distance of 7 miles. This formidable task was welcomed by many locals as a means of employment during these difficult times. The land surrounding the pump house is owned by the town of Dannemora. It was given to the town as a gift to be made into a veterans park, never to be sold. It was also at this pump house site where there was a beach house, a long cement dock, swing sets, satin cement, and picnic tables. The people who enjoyed these amenities were greeted by the friendly pump house workers. In 1933 and 1934, the wife of the President of the United States, Mrs. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, summered in Shazy Lake. She stayed at Reginald Reinhold's Warrenrath's camp on the island that is across from the pump house. It is believed these structures were built at approximately the same time and with the same type of quarried stone. During this time, the pump house had a Shazy Lake museum inside with many local artifacts and souvenirs. The pump house also had a registry of persons visiting the pump house at Shazy Lake. In August of 1934, Mrs. F.D. Roosevelt, Eleanor, and an entourage of 6 other people, including her state police bodyguard, Earl Miller, signed the pump house registry. Later that month, Hollywood movie stars Joan Crawford and Clark Gable also signed the pump house registry. And on the packet that I gave you, that would be the last page. So I called Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt by Mrs. FD because she's the first signature and that's how she signed it. New York State stopped using the pump house after the attacks of September 11, 2001, and the danger of terrorist attacks on water systems became more of a concern. A 2002 federal law requires community water systems that serve more than 3,300 people to assess their vulnerabilities and to create security and emergency response plans. Clinton Correctional Facility has approximately 2,500 inmates. Therefore, it was this series of events that put into motion the closure of the pump house, Shazy Lake water system that provided water to Clinton Correctional and Annex for a safer drilled well system in the town of Saranac. Since the closure of the pump house, Clinton Correctional Facility meagerly maintains the building and equipment inside. On Thursday, May 31st, 2018 at 12:30 p.m., I met with Claude Snyder, plant superintendent at Clinton Correctional Facility at the pump house, so I could photograph the interior. Bill has those pictures, if you guys want to look at them. It was discovered in April of 2018, 2 months ago, that the sump pump had failed. There was approximately 3 feet of water inside the lower level of the building for an undetermined amount of time, possibly damaging or destroying value equipment like the boiler, which provided the heat to protect the pipes and other equipment. 2 of the main lines had been drained and tagged as such on June 13th, 2017. By draining the lines, the building wasn't heated for the winter of 2017 and 2018, therefore causing the interior paint to crack and peel. A noticeable crack was observed in a pipe, but its severity is undetermined without further analysis done by a professional. Enclosed in this informational packet, you will find information sent to me concerning the equipment and Claude Snyder's recommendations. Now, mind you, Claude does work for the state, so I'm sure his recommendations are a little biased. But I told him that I would include his recommendations because he was kind enough to let me in there and take pictures, which he really didn't have to do.
You know, it's funny that you just say that they got a Will McLean gold boiler in that building. So that gold boiler is probably not more than 10 or 15 years old, 15 years old maybe the most.
Like I said, yeah, they stopped using it after 9/11 terror attacks. Up until then, they were using it. When I went in there, Joe, I don't know what I'm looking at, you know. So that's why I said there should be professionals looking at that stuff. On June 1st, 2018, I spoke with Jerry Lindicki, Planner 3 in Albany. And he told me that the state is interested in a transfer of the pump house and property to the town of Dannemora. That as of yet, no date has been set for demolition, and if the town of Dannemora was interested, to send a letter to Acting Commissioner of Corrections and Community Supervision, Anthony J. Annucci. Part of the fact-finding was public interest. An online petition to save the pump house from demolition was authored and started by Mark Dannemora, and of this date, as of probably 15 minutes ago, it was 2 signatures shy of 1,700. Within a short period of time, this many signatures in such a rural area is quite impressive. The historic information in this report is credited to Pete Light, Kathleen King, Judith LaPointe, Don Jackson, Mark Dennicourt, and the Plattsburgh Public Library. Like I said, one of the pages does discuss an OGS 2012 report, demolition of the pump house. The estimated cost was approximately $64,000 for the basics, and a full decommissioning cost was $133,000. This would leave a vacant building standing with the pit filled in. Doesn't address any maintenance issues with the building. Again, that's August of 2012. I tried to get a hold of Jerry Lindicki, Planner 3 in Albany, yesterday, to ask him for up-to-date estimated costs, and he left a message. He hasn't returned my phone call as of such. The second to the last page tells about the size of the area. There is a 1,000-gallon fuel tank outside. The way he talked, it still had fuel in it. Which, if
Underground.
if they didn't heat it last year, I don't know why they didn't drain it.
Underground fuel tank.
Well, it's kind of like built in the embankment, you know? There's a coal shaft, what looks like a chimney. There's a coal shaft there, and the pipe from the tank goes between the chimney and the corner of the building for the boiler. But the boiler was also, you know, under the water. Most of the equipment was under the water, so my recommendation is if the town does want this, which I hope they do, because you don't see architecture like this in this area. You see architecture like this in, you know, New York City, or maybe even on Beacon Street in Plattsburgh, across from the hospital, you know, where the doctors and the lawyers live. But to have something that was built with such quality. Because when Steve Englehart came up, I mean, there are a couple of things, you know, a couple of things with the slate roof, but other than that, he said the stone and the foundation and everything about it was sound.
I think one thing you can add to your proposal, I just looked up the Elizabethan Revival era.
Yes,
That dates back to 1558 to 1603.
the style of architecture.
That's exactly.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, like I said, it's you know, we're a little dot on the map, especially in the APA, let alone New York State, and to have a beautiful structure like that in this area, I mean, and especially on the lake. I mean, the state owns 1/3 of an acre, and we own all the land around it. So for them to demolish it, I mean, it's not like they're demolishing it for the sake of progress, because there's going to be no progress there. And I think what my suggestion is, and it kind of goes with what Arch says, is that the community that shows interest, I mean, there's almost 1,700 signatures there. And the guy that authored the signature, he said, Lori, he said, if everybody that signed this signature to save the pump house would donate $20, he said, would you do it? I said, yes, I would. That's just one meal, going out to eat one night a year. And he said, multiply $20 by 1,700 or 1,600, whatever it is. And he says, you know, that's a lot to help to take care of the building. And if we had a committee pairing with a couple members from the town board, with the help of Arch, I mean, we could sit down and brainstorm and come up with some kind of vision for this building. Some kind of vision, whether it be an internet cafe, got a museum, a library, who knows what. But on that piece of property, I mean...
Well, I think that's where the point you're at, is to work with
Great, but the town has to show an interest, okay? And if the town shows an interest,
you've
they
got
have to send a letter of
You've got to
intent.
present to the town, I mean, a plan.
Well, the thing is, we can't have a plan if we don't know you're gonna be interested in backing
You
the
can't
plan.
be, no, we're interested if you don't have a plan.
Well,
You know, I think there's no doubt there's got to be a partnership here.
Right.
It's all endeavor.
right, but you have to at least tell the state that, yes, there is an interest, okay? Because what I heard from Claude Snyder, from Clinton Correctional Facility, and Jerry Lindicki, is, well, the town board has already decided that you want the property, but you want us to do all the abatement and then turn it over. And I said, well, the town board hasn't really decided anything at this point.
Well, that would be nice for them to do all the work.
Well, yes, it would, but the thing is, here's my thing. Joey, you know what it's like, to Joe, Steve, it's like sitting down to negotiate a contract. If we want interest in this building, we gotta call the state and say, okay, let's sit down and talk about this. We're showing an interest, so let's have a letter of intent. Then sit down at the negotiation table and see what you can all work out. But you gotta have interest first.
No, and I totally agree with you. Just, get $20 times $134,000, right? That's
Plus grants that Arch might be able to help us get.
But I think that you can't tell me there's not money in New York State for the preservation of historical buildings. So that's when you got to start looking at Betty Little and Billy Jones and Schumer. I mean, Gillibrand. I mean, we should start knocking on the doors of those individuals and say, listen, are you in it for the state or not in it for the state?
Mark Denacor, who authored the petition, has already reached out to the police department. Okay?
And we have the petition out there, but there's a lot of people that are not on the internet that doesn't have an idea what's going on too.
Right.
So we have to put it out there.
You do.
But I've reached out to Billy Jones already. He responded to,
He sent you a link, right?
he responded to, Dora Sweeney, an email. And he
Yeah.
get back, he told them to go back to the town.
Well, he also, in an email too, I believe said, here's a link, you go to this link, and, you know, which I didn't even look at that, because where I was told by Jerry Lindicki, Planner 3 in Albany, with OGS, and he said the only his boss above him is Anthony Anucci. This is what he told me you guys need to do. Now, I mean, which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? But to me, if you form a committee and you start brainstorming, and the town doesn't say, well, we're interested, like you said, Joe, next thing you know, the demolition crew's in there.
The whole secret of this whole mess is the abatement process. That's where the expense comes in, you know, when you're moving the equipment.
They're gonna abate it, whether we take it over or not, they have to.
No doubt, somebody's gonna abate it.
You gotta, even if you're done with a demo, you gotta do it.
Right.
Well, the thing is, even if they do the abatement, again, this is part of the negotiation process. If they do the abatement and then turn us the building over, it's still gonna be cheaper in the long run for them to do everything, tear it down, level up that piece of property, and then they'll probably give us that property anyway, because they can't do anything with it. So, they're gonna do all that work anyway, so why not at least let them do the hard work, and they're still gonna save money, and like what Mary said, it's gonna be a win-win situation for the state and the town, because the state isn't gonna have to tear it down, and we could probably take that building over after it's abatement-free of all kinds of garbage, and maybe, you know, I mean, you know how it is up there. You can sit there for hours and look out there. I mean, the possibilities are endless if people have vision.
I totally get it.
You know, I mean, progress didn't happen without somebody taking a leap of faith. You gotta have vision in order to move forward. And a lot of stuff is a leap of faith. They took a leap of faith with the depot up in Lime Mountain and made it a museum. That was a leap of faith.
Laura, are you looking into forming a nonprofit organization to take it over? Because
I'm looking at, you know what I'm looking at right now? Because I'm out of my league in this, and I'll be the first one to admit, I'm out of my league. I was a correction officer for 25 years. I don't know anything about this. So basically, when I started this, I put it out on the internet. I am open for all the help that I can get. And to me, part of this committee would be part of that. People that would be able to, from the community, that knows how to do stuff, to form committees, to do this with the help of Arch. And I reached out with Arch. I asked Mary to come and explain what they do, because I can't explain what they do. It's out of my forte.
So Mary, what do you think our next steps are?
I think it would probably be, you know, in the sake, because we don't know what the, I'm going to just say, so I can see because we don't know if there's any demolition date on the table or when that might be, and because we don't know when that could happen, like Lori said, it could happen whenever, we don't know. I think you need to decide if you have an interest in acquiring this building. Whether that be you need to have a plan first and then you decide that you want to move forward and acquire this building, or you're going to just take a leap of faith and acquire this building, that's something that I can't decide
I think for me,
for you.
and I don't want to speak for myself, but those board members chime in, but for me, I think unless there's something of interest put out there, then nobody's going to know anything, right? So for us, you won't know until you hit the negotiation process between the two entities. So I think for us, the basic, we'll have to meet with, unfortunately Matt's not here tonight, but we'll get with Matt. But we should send out some sort of letter, registered letter, return receipt, that we're interested in entering into a conversation regarding the structure of that building, and then see where it takes us from there. Yes, no?
I don't see how that could hurt.
could I just ask a question? First of all, thank you for all that research that you did, that's amazing. Is it the most important step to have it become a historical building before we move on?
Well, the benefit to having it become a National Register listed building is that it does make you eligible for things like grants and other financial means. It also does a really good thing in that it helps foster additional pride in this project and pride in the community, and in a way it helps propel the project further. So for financial means, it is absolutely necessary to start that process.
How long does that take, Mary?
The National Register process can take a while, but there's a lot of grant programs that as long as the project is in progress, like as long as the listing is in progress, so to speak, there's usually some room for negotiation there. But because you're dealing with the state, it can take a year or more to be formally listed. It's a rather long process to do the actual nomination form, and it requires a lot of writing and a lot of research, and there's a number of ways you could do it. You could either do it on your own. An organization like us could guide you through the process of doing the research and doing the writing and making sure it is good enough for submission to the SHPO, or you could hire a consultant to do it for you. Arch does do that. There's a number of other consulting organizations that do that work as well. But I would say at least a year. Like I said, we've already submitted a determination of eligibility form to the SHPO for this building. That, in a sense, gets you in the system, if you will, so it can cut down on wait time.
So it'll be multi-layered then, so it's not only
Yeah.
a letter to the state, it's a letter to the National Historic Preservation.
Well, that, like I said, the determination of eligibility has already been submitted. That will be reviewed. It's usually a pretty quick turnaround time in that. But if they decide that, yes, this building is eligible for listing, then you can move forward with either hiring a consultant to do the work for you or doing it on your own.
Laura, you got Lynn Dickey's
I do, I was
contact?
just about to say, if you guys
Yeah.
want
Thank you,
Jerry
Pat.
Dickey's number, I can give that to you, because I think it's got to come from you. I mean, he was nice enough to talk to me,
Yeah.
and take it on verbatim that I was, representing the town.
Yeah, I think,
But, like I said,
spell
he
his
did,
name right, L-I-N-D-E-C-K-E.
yes, I did.
He's not employee?
Yeah, his title is Planner 3 in Albany.
No, he's part of the Department of Corrections.
Well, OGS/corrections, yeah, all building too.
Oh,
So general services totally different than that.
Yeah.
Well, Planner 3 in Albany,
You got
whatever
it,
that
Lee?
is.
All right, what-
So, I think it's OGS, I'm not really sure what Planner 3 is.
Okay.
Something in the Office of General Services.
Okay, it is something in the Office of General Services.
5181.
Okay, 473-8658. And he said
Did
that,
he give you an email address?
No.
Okay.
he just said that his
If it's OGS.
boss was Anthony Anucci. That was the guy higher than him.
And then he's Department of Corrections.
Well, it's all in the Department of Corrections though, because it had to do with the
Well,
pipeline
he's
to the
saying
prison.
that's his boss.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's all tied together because, well, it's prison property.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, nice work.
And I would be willing
good
to,
job.
I would be willing to be on the committee with other town people,
I think-
to work on this project.
And not for profit, I'll tell you, it's another avenue we should look at.
Yes.
I think there's many things, Joe, there's many things, but, people have to, like I said, look down the road and just take that leap of faith.
Yeah.
Because it's a beautiful structure. I mean, Steve Englehart came up, he took pictures of it, he looked at it, he said, it's sound. It's sound.
Okay, good job, Lori. Okay. Next thing, horse and addendum. What is that? You guys got a copy of that?
Yeah.
Well, I've had a conversation with Mr. Tatino earlier, and it was in May, and they expressed that they're 2 weeks behind schedule when they started. And I was talking to him about that they more than likely are not gonna take the 50,000. He said, well, I'd like to take more than 50,000 to tell you the truth, and if I could take up to 60,000. So we have to, if we want to agree to do that, allow him to take up to 60,000. we got to, put the agreement in writing and,
From what area? The areas in now or the?
yeah, it's town, it's just the town, yeah. So if he takes 55, it's just gonna increase the amount of revenue coming into the town.
Is it based upon the same?
Same price?
Same price, yeah. But it's just that he's looking this year to,
That's on TV.
so, Matt put this together for the addendum, and just need, you guys want to make a resolution to pass it, and I'll sign it and get it to him, and he'll sign it, and it'll be done. But he's just looking to take up to 60,000 this year.
Are you gonna put that in here? I don't see them.
It's in there.
Yeah, it's in there.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, all right.
All right, I'll make a motion that we allow the purchase of 60,000 tons at the same rate of 15.25 a ton.
What it is, 1525?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? Do you want to roll call?
Sure.
Supervisor Chase?
Yes.
Councilman DeBrey?
Yes.
Councilman Leclerc?
Yes.
Councilman Barron?
Yep.
Okay, that's good. I'll get a hold of Frank tomorrow. And the last thing on the agenda is the revised C&E thing. Sort of, the number one is Canal Park. The option for the backstop, that's out. I'm not looking on the bottom where I crossed that out. That's not something I was proposing. That's just an option that he threw in there. I don't think it's something that's necessary at this time. But Canal Park, it's $10,783. That's what he's proposing, to put a fence across the front part of that property. Remove and dispose of the existing metal fence would be $1,590. Mine Hill Gate, that's up on Mine Hill, there's a gate there. We'd like to put in a more secure gate to, keep the four-wheelers and trespassers off the property. And actually, it would help increase the security on that side of our town property immensely. So that proposal is $4,783. It's you can see the drawing there, 24 feet winged out. And actually, if we end up doing what we talked about in the last meeting in regards to that building that Mr. Siskavich left behind, it would be a gate that, if we open up that road and get the use of that building, it would be a security gate we've already got in place. The powerhouse gate, you can see that he's going to reuse the old gate panel, and there's towards the powerhouse, it's a 16-foot winged out area, and that proposed price is $3,685. The Peach Street gate is at the end of Peach Street where there's a turnaround. That gate is, the turnaround is used by the highway department, and proposed on that is $2,325. And the damaged link fence, what we talked about earlier with Andrea, that is $2,262. So, it's a cost for this, all this would be
25,428.
25,428.
I already did the math.
Okay. We took out the 1,590, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so that's where I think it's all of the gates at the powerhouse and everything. We can actually end up closing that gate, securing that area, like on the weekends, where even just keeping it open when the highway's got to get up there, type of thing. It'll just increase our security on the property. That's a liability situation for us anyways, through the four-wheelers and everything. And we need to repair the fenced-in area at Phillips Court and Canal Park. What we've got down there is It's just an accident waiting for it to happen if somebody fell on that fence, so. Any questions?
No, it's a lot of money, but
It's a lot of money, but
it can be a lot worse than you sue for not
Not
maintaining.
one person suing you will be a lot more.
Yeah.
so,
No. I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve the edited amount of $25,428 to CE fencing.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? Roll call, Supervisor Chase,
yes.
Councilman Gray,
Yes.
Councilman Claire,
Yes.
Councilman Barron.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're missing your class.
Really?
Sorry, Joe.
That's your wife, Jim.
All right, any public comments?
We need a motion on the insurance proposal.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yes, we do.
And we gotta finish that today.
Yeah, we do, you're right. Yeah,
47,489.74.
yeah, okay. We need a motion for the insurance proposal, $47,489.74.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? Roll call, Supervisor Chase,
Yes.
Councilman Gray,
Yes.
Councilman Claire,
Yes.
Councilman Barron.
Okay. Now we're at public comments. Marie, go ahead.
Oh, whatever.
First of all, I want to thank the board for the work that they do. I think there's a lot that you do that the public is not aware of, that it takes a lot of time. And you certainly don't do it for the money. But secondly, does the board ever, say once a year or so, go out to bid for the insurance to compare coverage and costs?
It's something we could do, but we haven't done, no.
Okay, just a suggestion.
Right.
Yes.
Chris? I don't have my glasses on.
I just wanted to inform you, we didn't know that the potholes have been filled on the Wilford King Road, and we are very grateful.
Yay.
Took long enough, though.
Yes, it is.
Too long.
Oh, yes, yeah, but at least they're.
What about, there was a, up before you get to Weldon's, Sugar House on the right, there is
It's not
there's a
filled.
huge hole that's not filled yet?
Not the last time, not since they did the
Is
potholes.
the cone still there?
You know, I haven't been down that way. I
There's
can,
some that they avoided, it's not all of it.
it's, here the whole thing is falling out,
Yeah. But the major one, the big one by the park, they got that stuff.
yeah. But the one you're talking about, Joy, the last time I went down, which was after they built the potholes, that was still there with the cones.
I mean, that's another liability situation.
But I can't tell you
Person
whether
on a
that's,
bike, person jogging, not see
oh,
it,
yeah.
snap an ankle.
Or at night, you know, even
At
with the
night.
cones there, yeah, it's dangerous.
I followed up on that, they were working down the road, but it wasn't, I didn't go all the way down the road.
Well, if they did their job of going down the road, they would have saw it.
Well, not only that, the branches on the side of the road, there is some that, it is, I mean, we got a camper, we are hitting.
Okay.
Even with the truck, if you meet a car, you're hitting. Yes, they did cut up some of the trees, they took what's good, the rest they just threw off to the side. That should have been picked up.
Totally agree.
I mean, we are on a side road, I realize that, but we don't need to look like a dump.
Well, the thing too about Wilford King Road is there's so many blind curves. The whole thing is almost all blind
Well,
curves.
there's no reason why,
When
they
you
can't-
have all the tree branches coming out, you're trying to avoid them, it can be a deadly
there's no reason
situation.
why they can't chip that in.
Well, that would be nice.
Duly noted, Carol. We'll make sure that gets
I
passed along.
mean, I do stop Mark, sometimes he's just a little friendly, sometimes we're not. Depends how I put it.
Sometimes I feel like a nut. Any more public comments, Lori?
Yeah, Joe, one thing, when you were talking about that equipment inside the pump house, I mean, you had suggested using it for future fire purposes, whatever, I don't know. My suggestion to that would be, is have somebody go in there that knows what they're looking at, because
Well, I
I
think-
sure as hell didn't.
I think it's important that, part of our community is our fire prevention, so we should have, Town Dannemora, or the Dannemora Fire Department, Mount Fire Department, and other surroundings, because if there's a major fire, they're gonna use that as a drop zone.
Well,
And trucks are
we're
gonna go
not
in and
even
out, in
hooked
and out,
up.
in and out.
Have you been down to the thing? Have you been down to the lake?
Mhm.
That pipe hasn't been hooked up in many years. If
Well-
we had a fire,
The dry hydrant now?
yes,
Separated.
yes, that's been separated for over 4 years, and it's been brought to the town fire department.
Okay, that's
If
their,
we had a fire,
Yeah.
you couldn't save us.
We don't have any water anyway.
Right, that's been unhooked. You go down there and it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the
put a
white,
new water
the
line
plastic
running
is
right by
wrong.
your house.
You can't, that doesn't, wouldn't be, does not provide water for a fire
They could.
department.
But
No, it's
I-
only a 2-inch line, they only put 4-inch in.
But seriously, that needs to be.
That was a big
fixed.
issue going through.
Says, I mean, we would burn.
Yeah, that's
My
what,
brook when it's
I was
flooded.
wondering about that, when you said about something for the community.
Also,
Would
did you
that
guys ever go
work
into
as
the,
as a,
the pump
using
house
it for
when you were
fire?
kids?
prevention?
Years ago.
Oh my God, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Now there's nothing. I mean, I'm sure those pictures are nothing.
I would definitely add
She
in,
says that that would work, you know, and she said that use it for a community purpose. I just asked her if using it as fire prevention to pump water, she said
one
that
of the
probably
biggest
would.
reservoirs in the,
I would think
Must be
so.
safe.
If you are moving, if you are going to move towards national register listing, and you want to be eligible for grants and stuff, you probably just have to run these plans by the SHPO, and that's something that we
Okay.
can help you do that,
okay, good.
before you move forward.
Because, yeah, they just turned those lines off last summer. Last year, 2017, they stopped draining those lines. Now that, there's a picture of a crack in one of them lines, like I said,
So,
I don't know what the severity is, if it's a surface crack, you know, I know it's cast iron piping, but I don't know how, you know, the depth of it.
it's probably your.
But I did see, I mean, I know antique when I see it, there was an antique panel box, there was some antique gauges on it right near the door, it's like, wow.
Is there
that's-
something else in this for you, Laura?
My mother was a king, I would have gone property that's been on farm land for 150 years.
All right.
My roots run deep, Joey, just like yours.
Also, Lori said that the register that used to be at the pump house, which I cannot believe, was intact when I went to the Plattsburgh Library, has been ripped up. Can you believe that? Someone went in and after, what's the name?
Well, the last entry on the register that Kathleen told me about, because I asked her about the register with the autographs that you have. So I got a hold of the people at the Plattsburgh Public Library, and there's this back room that nobody's allowed into, and you should have nice white gloves to touch the stuff. So they were so kind as to go in there for a couple days with volunteers and try to find this stuff, because it's a registry with no title. It's not cataloged in the Dewey Decimal System. And then the other stuff is just a bunch of artifacts, and unfortunately, they have not been cataloged.
Okay.
So what they brought out to me, probably 4 or 5 days later after I went down again, and they brought out a big box about that thick with some folders in it, and on top was the register that Kathleen had described to me. And unfortunately, the last date in the registry was 1915, and that was the back of the book. And then I was looking, and it's like, it was obvious, because they didn't rip it out all the way. There's, you know how you rip a page out, there's a piece left. Well, somebody had ripped a bunch of pages out.
What was in the one that was there, but what kind, were they names of people?
Yes, yes. Yeah, it was a hotel registry.
Oh, it was a hotel registry.
Right, well, that's, I think, what was used in the museum that Eleanor Roosevelt had signed and all those movie stars. That's what was in the Shades of Eight Museum at that time. I
So
think
all
they
the
just.
important names of people that somebody could sell their names.
Well, you know, I'm not gonna surmise as to what happened. You know, all I know is I went down there, but I think the way I looked at it, this register that I looked at was from a hotel on the other side of the lake near what used to be the old railroad depot. I don't think that what I was looking at was the same registry that was on this side of the lake. I don't know, Kathleen, if it was the same book.
It says
Because
right at the top of the, where people sign what it was.
Right, and this book didn't have that, because the Xerox copy that you have, it looks like it's not all, it looks like it was like pieced together with a couple of things. Because, yeah.
It could be important names.
Right, because where the bracket is, I mean, Earl Miller, that was Eleanor Roosevelt's New York State Police bodyguard. Because when they were, it's funny, kind of kismet, because when they were in the back looking for this stuff, I'm at the biography section, and the books that are standing right in front of me in the biography section is Eleanor Roosevelt. So it's like, oh, so I take the book out, of course, I look at the pictures, like, you know, I'm not gonna read it, but all the pictures, and there she is at Wargrass Camp with Earl Miller, and he taught her how to shoot a pistol up at Wargrass Camp, which is the mansion on the island. So,
The name of the book was only the registry of persons visiting the pump house.
right, but it wasn't a real title, so it wasn't ever put in the hardcover.
the background of that picture?
Excuse me?
Julie the point in the background of that picture?
Boy, it's a good thing Judy's not here to hear that.
It's not standing with Eleanor.
You know, we're gonna adjourn, guys.
So anyway,
Roll call, Supervisor Chase?
Here.
Councilman Ray?
Yes.
Councilman Blair?
Here.
Councilman Beard?
Yes.
Councilman Crawford, yes.
Primarily this meeting is in regards to presentations from three different groups. Andy Chase, Andrea LaBarge, and then we got two sort of combined together, Mary Servus and Lori Stacy over the homeless. But we're going, Andy, you're first up.
You guys get a chance to look at that? Don't you get a copy?
Yes, I got it. Everybody got a copy?
Well, look at all of it, you know. I know Joe, Billy, everybody else, I don't know if you and Joey are playing with the property, but it's where the old store and the saloon and supermarket used to be for over 100 years in my property. I've owned the property for the last, 20-some years.
Let's help you guys, I'm just taking the copy.
Yeah, we don't have an easel here. Anyways, yeah, here's another copy. So what I took the liberty to do here is to do a little sketch on this. So I'd love to be a perfect spot for a
Podium?
for a tree.
Get you on
Well, Bill, I want to look.
I got the camera on.
Now Joe's gonna have his back to me.
All right.
You can turn around, Joe? Anyways,
I can hear you.
as you can see right there, it's 1.3 acres. It's got town water and sewer. It's a vacant lot. I bought it, like I said, about 20-some years ago. For the simple reason being, it was a vacant lot. I didn't want anybody else building in there at the time. So, and now I'm gonna put it up for sale. And if you've been through Line Mountain, you see what we have up there for a playground. It's not much of one, in my opinion. It consists of basically an open tennis court that they took pipes off, and now it's just a fenced-in area that two pine trees fell on.
It'll be a pickleball court, they come in
It'll
July.
be a pickleball court now. So that, then it has a wooden boat with a plastic slide coming off it and a backstop. So that's what consists of the playground in Line Mountain today. And what I've done with this little sketch right here, you could do anything you wanted to do with it. We put parking there, you know, anything that swing sets and everything else, from a basketball court to, you could put pickleball courts there. And on the property, there's a brook that runs right down through it. You could put a bridge there, and that gives, you know, fish to cook if you like. Anyways, all kinds of ideas. Like I said, it was a piece of property that was once the old saloon, grocery store, bar. And if you ever go in the Line Mountain Post Office, I believe there's pictures of it, isn't there, Bill?
I don't know. Not paying much attention.
Where's it located?
As you come up through the main drag in Line Mountain, right before the bridge right there, it's right in front of the fire department.
department.
Okay.
Yep, it's a vacant piece of land.
Right next to the road.
Bottom of Line Hill.
Yep. Yep. So we'd love to, we filed, like I said, Wednesday, we cleared it, I paid $18,500 for it, I think I paid $2,500 to $3,000 to clear it, paid school land taxes on it throughout the years, which aren't been much of anything. But we'd love to sell it to the town, but basically what I have invested in it, and that's $25,000. Yep, so, food for thought. I wish we had all the other councilmen here, but naturally, you know, Bill, you know more about this than I do, but I believe there's a matching fund from the state and federal government for anything that the town puts in.